Hi, and welcome to the Transform Your Wellness podcast, a space where we explore the body, mind, and spirit connection and discover powerful ways to reclaim your health, awaken your potential, and live with purpose, joy, and vitality. I'm your host, Karin Hagberg, also known as the Awake Wellness Warrioress, and I am so glad you're here.
Yeah.
Today's episode is called Healing Beyond the Mind, Joe Petroski's journey from illness to intuitive mastery. In 1999, Joe was sent home to die. But instead of giving up, he discovered the power of energy healing, a journey that not only brought him back to full health, but also awakened his extraordinary gift as a master intuitive healer and guide. Today, Joey helps high achievers and truth seekers release subconscious blocks, dissolve deep pain, and move through serious illnesses and stress. His precision healing and intuitive guidance create rapid transformations, helping people reconnect with their true peace, purpose, and power. In our conversation, Joey shares his powerful story of survival, the lessons he learned along the way, and now how healing energy can open the door to profound transformation when mindset work and traditional methods just aren't enough. So, to all the listeners here, get ready to be inspired and awakened. I'm going to dive into this incredible conversation with Joey. Joey, welcome to the podcast.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. It's nice to hear that intro.
Yeah, it is so good to connect with you. Yeah, and I am so excited. You see, I came across you on Facebook a little while ago, and I started, of course, um, having a look at what you were posting and going, there's something about this man that I really, really want to find out more because I just felt really aligned with the work you're doing. And I am so curious about hearing how and what you do. But before we go more into that, tell me a little bit about where you're located and how your upbringing was, Joey.
Okay. Well, they're quite different.
They are.
So, yeah, currently I live in sunny Florida, West Palm Beach area, and I actually used to live in Minnesota. And up in Minnesota was cold and dark and dreary. And I came down here 3 years in a row, and I look up and say, "Wow, it's blue." And when I was a kid, it was not easy. I was beat a lot and screamed and yelled at immensely. And I was both at home and at school. And I was told, why can't I be like everybody else? What's wrong with you? You're never going to be, you're never going to be enough. You're not. I was told at grade school, I was in first grade and I was told that I was going to go to hell and I wasn't going to I was going to be separated from my family. And it just went from there with the abuse. And I grew up really being told and believing that I was unusual, I was different, there was something wrong with me. And I didn't know that I had these gifts. I did have some dreams come true when I was a kid. I did have things that there was certain people in the family that I just didn't like and I didn't trust and I felt uneasy about them, but I didn't know why I felt uneasy about them, why I didn't like them. And come to find out, they were the ones that were the criminals, in the family or the ones that were doing wrong in other ways. And so when I had gotten sick, it was a long period of being ill. And, doctor after doctor started to tell me that it's like, well, you have this illness and you're going to die from it. And the first doctor that told me told me that I told him go to hell, and then I gave him a lot of other words and said, "How dare you? How dare you tell somebody like that?" And but every single thing that he said came true, except luckily for me, I didn't die. You know?
Wow, wow. So, oh God, it sounds like you had a really quite rough and tough upbringing from a little child. And um, so when you say you fell ill, what age did that happen at?
I was, it happened in my 30s, and it started out just that I would get really serious headaches. At first, it was just really serious headaches from perfumes and colognes that I actually liked, ones that I had given my wife at the time, my ex-wife now. Colognes that I used to wear myself, I couldn't wear them anymore. And soon, what would happen is when I would get exposed to them, not only did I get an instantaneous migraine, but I would become very angry too. And I wasn't angry. I was at times I was, all excited because my wife and I were going out on a date, or, she came home and I was looking forward to seeing her. And so I wasn't angry. But when the chemicals hit me, I did. And then it got to the point where everything that I inhaled, perfumes, laundry detergents, potpourri, car exhaust, fertilizer, dryer sheets, you name it, anything like that made me sick. Instantaneous, I'd get a headache, I would get severe nausea, and I would actually lose my vision. And I would be able to see, but there would be no way, for example, that I'd be able to say that you were a human being or that you had a necklace on and there was two microphones on the screen. I'd never be able to tell you that. Um, and there was time that I saw this bouncy white thing, and I was just like, I think that's my daughter, but I couldn't tell you for sure because she had, very blonde hair when she was a kid. And they had my wife at the time move art around in the house, and she'd say, "What's this?" And I would go by memory, and I'd say, "That's that," and that's that, and I wouldn't know that she had shifted them and changed them.
Yeah.
And um, and so it was a very scary illness, and it was getting worse. And then it affected foods, and I would get horrific body pains from certain foods, and I would get nauseous. I would actually hallucinate um, with certain foods. Certain other foods felt like if I had peas, for example, it would feel like I got kicked in the back. If I had carrots, my throat would itch like crazy. I would just want to rip my throat out because it itched so bad, and it got worse and worse, and I no longer could absorb the nutrients from the food because there were so few foods I could eat. I became super emaciated. I was so darn skinny that you could see the cartilage in my nose, and you could tell the difference between the cartilage and the bone in my ribs. And sure enough, nine of the best doctors that treated the condition I had, they all said, "Joe, you are going to die from this, and you need to come to peace with that. And you probably will kill yourself, and you need to come to peace with that." And I was like, I don't know how you're supposed to come to peace with killing yourself, especially at the time I had, a child, and then I had two children.
Uh,
And it was interesting how the second came about, but they actually thought that I was crazy because I continued to try to live. And
oh.
so uh, when everybody else has given up on you and they think you're crazy for trying, you know,
How
interesting.
incredible. I mean, the things that the doctors were saying to you, hey?
Well, they had an inch and a half worth of medical evidence proving what they were saying. And so if you went just by the medical evidence, I didn't have much time, and the symptoms were getting worse and worse. And um, so if you went by the medical evidence, they were right. And when I did get better, I went back to a couple of the doctors that I had worked with to show them that I lived. And one of the doctors asked, he says, "Can I draw your blood?" And I said, "Oh my God, I'd love it." And so he drew my blood and he showed me, the two. And he says, "Joe," he says, these cannot be the same body. And I wish I had saved my records because there was three markers on there that when those three markers go, the medical establishment knows that your body's killing itself and you don't have much time.
Wow.
And three of those markers, once they occur in your body, the medical establishment uh, has never seen them be reversed. And so the doctor, he said, they have reversed in you. He says, "You're a miracle." He says, "There's no way these could happen. It's an absolute miracle that you're alive." And so I was like, "I'll
Wow.
take it."
Yeah. Oh, miracles do happen. I believe in miracles.
Definitely. Mhm.
I was going to say, so what was the reason for you reacting to, all kinds of different fragrances and smells? And yeah, I obviously know that all the fragrances are very toxic. I know that. I'm very sensitive to, I don't use anything that is not pure nature based because I can't handle it either. But what was the reason for you reacting so hugely to that?
Sure. Well, and now I can handle everything. I do enjoy working again with construction materials. I've remodeled a couple of houses since getting better, using all the things that used to cause me to go blind and cause me to go so darn dizzy. They wanted to give me a walker when I was sick. And I was like in my 30s. I don't know how old I was, 36, 37, I don't know. And I'm like, there's no way. I am not gonna have a walker. But what I would do is I would, from the easy chair that I sat in most of the day, almost all day, sucking on the oxygen, just to maintain living. Between that and the bathroom, I had pieces of furniture, and so I'd go from one piece of furniture to the other piece of furniture, and it drove my wife at the time crazy. She goes, "Just get a walker for God's sakes. We have to walk around all this furniture," and I'm just like, "No." Um, so what made it happen? Well, the first thing that happened is in 1986, I ended up having a surgery, and immediately after the surgery, I complained of all kinds of horrible, horrible side effects. And it was a botched surgery, and so they were trying to cover their butt. I wish I would have found somebody. It took 9 years for
Wow.
them to find out that I had caught two of those hospital infections and the type of infections you can only get in a hospital. So if they would have taken me serious 9 years previously, I probably might not have gotten sick. And but I had two of those infections and they changed my body chemistry. And then on top of it, other things in my body started to fail because of that, because of those infections that had changed everything. And, it just was a domino effect of one thing getting sick and then the other thing getting sick. And then um, it got to the point that every single medicine that they gave me, I had the side effects from every single one. And they thought at the time that I was reading the PDR, and they had actually pulled one on me. I was going to the doctor, and part of the deal was I was severely depressed, but when you're dying, I mean, I used to be 205 pounds, not a stitch of fat on me. I used to, at the time, I had a home maintenance business, and so I did light construction. I would remodel your bathroom, your kitchen, build you a deck, replace windows and doors. And I was strong as could be. I was the first on the job, last off the job. If anybody needed a laborer, they called me up. And I went from that to not being able to do anything, not being able to see, being so nauseous I had to have furniture, to hold me up. And so, yeah, I was depressed. I was massively depressed. And they gave me these different medicines, and every single one, I had every single side effect. And so, one time, what the doctors did is they gave me the I can't remember which it was, the blue contents in a yellow pill, or they gave me the yellow contents in a blue pill, one of the things like that. And they had me get the prescription filled at a certain apothecary. And they said, "Hey, we're giving you a special, or prescription here. So it's pure and it's clean and it's going to be good for you." And I'm like, "Okay, whatever." So I went to this apothecary and I got the pills. And when I went back to the psychiatrist, I said, "Hey, I'm having boom, 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 all these side effects." And it was a new psychiatrist. My psychiatrist wasn't there. And the guy said, "Well, you can't have those. Those are side effects from the blue pill. You got the yellow pill." And I'm like, "Hey, by now you should know. I don't care what color pill it is." I said, "I'm having these side effects." So he went down to the head of the psychiatry and got the head dude, and he came down and he says, "So what are your side effects?" And I said, "Do, do, do, do," And he says, "Oh my God, you're telling the truth." And I says, "Excuse me?" And he says, "Well, we thought you were reading the PDR. And so we thought you were making up the side effects." I said, "What the hell is the PDR?" And I said, "I haven't been making up anything." I said, "What's going on?" And he said, "Well," he says, "we put the blue contents and the yellow pill or whatever it was,
Uh-huh.
and to see if you were telling the truth.
Oh,
And
really?
yeah, talk about medical malpractice for God's sakes. But I
Oh,
said, okay, so I'm telling the truth. What can you do for me? And the guy says, nothing. You need to go home. We can't give you anything. You're having the side effects from every medication. So you can't go, we can't give you anything. And so it's like, okay, here I am, sick as a dog, losing weight like crazy, looking ugly as hell because I was so damn skinny. And I hadn't been put on oxygen yet. And so I was having migraine after migraine. And when I would have the migraines would last anywhere from 3 to 7 days. But the longest migraine that I had, that was actually 17 days long.
oh,
And that's when I didn't know at the time, but my ex-wife she didn't believe that I was telling the truth. And so she purposely put chemicals into the laundry detergent, knowing that full well it would make me sick. And when I was getting sicker and sicker and sicker, she continued to do that. And she never ever told me the truth until we were getting divorced. And she had slipped and told her attorney, and her attorney, if there's a crime being committed, he had to say something. And so he had to say that, this is what happened. And I had to make the decision at the time if I was going to turn in my wife or not.
yeah,
But if I did, they didn't know if I would live at the time still. And so my option was to put my kids in foster care or to leave them with their mother. And I know that she loved her kids. And I never expected her to do anything wrong to her kids. So I made the choice to not file a criminal complaint. So,
wow. What a journey, Joe.
yes. Yeah,
Ah,
that's why they call me the Phoenix. And my daughters joke with me, and that I've had so many near-death experiences that the cats run from me because the cats are afraid I'll steal their 9 lives.
wow. And you've got three kids, haven't you?
Two daughters.
Two daughters, and they're grown up now, aren't they?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And do they know the full story of what happened? And are they close to both of you, mother and
Um, I would let them answer that. So,
yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, it's that obviously brought you to a whole new journey, as I understand. I want to hear about you turning your life around and then, your healing abilities and helping other people. And I have heard or I've read about you that you're a medical intuitive too. Is that correct?
well, I can't say that anymore because it's so interesting. The United States wants to have everything governmental, and so evidently, being a medical intuitive is now a licensed thing. I don't know how they would license it, but so I don't say that I'm that. But when I sit with people, and also a true medical intuitive like Carolyn Mace, she can look at you and she can tell you what surgery you need, what vitamins you need, what prescription you need, and what illness you have. And when I had the opportunity to sit with Carolyn Mace and Dr. Norman Shealy, I talked with them separately because they had worked together for a while, Dr. Norman Shealy and or Carolyn Mace.
Mm.
And I asked Carolyn, I said, hey, I says, if you can see it, I says, you can make it go away. And she goes, that's too much work. It's too much work. It's too much responsibility. I just tell them what they have and they can go fix it if they want. And but I don't really care about what the diagnosis is. What I do is I ask everybody, what's your symptoms? What are your symptoms? And because if it was the diagnosis, chances are the doctors could have cured that if they wanted to, or if they, but what I ask is the symptoms and what are the symptoms they're going. And so, I mean, because like if somebody comes with me with fibromyalgia or chronic fatigue, when I talk with them, if I ask them what their diagnosis is, again, most of the time, those are really nebulous kind of illnesses. The doctors continue to throw darts in the way that they treat them and the medications that they give them and such. But when I look and I feel the symptoms, I can feel what's going on in the body.
Mm.
And as I listen, I can hear the stories, and I can hear the stories of the traumas. And I can feel the inappropriate traumas that they've experienced, or the accidents, or the deaths, whatever it is that has brought them the grief, or whatever it was that biologically turned their body. Because oftentimes people will have an illness or some significant trauma that
Mm.
will change their body.
Mm.
And for example, there was one woman I worked with that she had a rollerblading accident, and she shattered her arm in 32 places. And if you have a significant enough trauma, your body's thermostat can break. So here she was, about 30 something, when she broke her arm in 32 places. And so for 7 years, she could never feel warm. No matter how many clothes she put on, she never felt like she was warm. She always felt cold. And 2 years after that accident, she was hit by a truck when she was delivering mail, and she had her arm outside the postal truck when she was putting the mail inside the mailbox. And so broke her shoulder, messed up her neck and her back. And the University of Minnesota wanted to fuse two vertebrae in the neck and two in her back. And she came to me, and as I was paying attention to her body, there was all kinds of shifts and all kinds of changes. And we were in a church, and it was 97 degrees. The church didn't have air conditioning. We're all trying to take off as many clothes as we possibly can. And she comes in and she's wearing a hoodie,
Oh,
long jeans, and tennis shoes and socks. And I'm like, wow, what the? And
oh,
so when I was working on her, she took off her hoodie and she had a long sleeve t-shirt on underneath that. I'm just like, oh my God. And then as I continued to work on her, she took off her long sleeve t-shirt. She had a t-shirt on. I was just like, a hoodie, a long sleeve t-shirt, and a t-shirt, and 97 degrees. Well, I started to look, and she was completely gray with pain, completely gray. And all of a sudden she started to get pink, and different blotches around her face. She started to get pink. And as I continued working, she was pink all over. And then for the first time, she actually started to sweat. And you could see the sweat on her chest and the sweat on her arms. And for the first time in 7 years, she actually started to feel warm.
mm,
And working a little bit more, and all of the pain was gone. So the first time in over 7 years, she had zero pain and 100% range of motion. And if I would have asked what her diagnosis was, that wouldn't have really helped me.
mm,
But when I just asked what the symptoms were and I paid attention, her body, when I work, I set out the prayer and intention to see what I need to see, hear what I need to hear, and feel what I need to feel, and then only say the words the client needs to hear. And as I did that, like I say, my teacher, he says, Joe, 47 minutes, and you made her pain free completely.
mm,
And my teacher told her, he says, tell him the rest of the story. And the rest of the story is that she had gone to my teacher, my mentor, and 3 times, and he couldn't help her. But when at that third time, she says, let's just go into prayer and meditation and see what. And so when they went into prayer and meditation to see what she should do next, she came out of the meditation and she says, you know the person that's going to help me.
mm.
And he said, and so she described me to an absolute T, because at the time I had much shorter hair. I was only healthy for a number of months, so I hadn't gotten my weight back. I was still extraordinarily skinny. And so she described this skinny dude with this very short, dark hair. And so I went, and that's what happened. And that's how I found out that I truly had this amazing gift that I could help people, even
Wow.
when nothing else had.
Just going back to when you were younger, you said at the
Uh-huh.
start of the podcast, you said that you always felt like you were a little bit different. And do you think that you had gifts already, or you were extremely intuitive, or you were connecting with spirits or angels at a very early age?
Well, when I look at it, one of the things that happens is I can feel people more than I hear them. And so what would happen to me is I would start to have conversations with people like I know 'em. I would be too friendly, too personable, and too personal right from the very beginning because I can see who they are. And I didn't know it at the time. I just was like, oh wow, and it's wild. I met one of my grade school crushes. A few years ago. She lives down here in Florida too, and so we arranged to meet, and we sat down. And she goes, "Yeah," she goes, "There was something about you. You were always weird." And I tried as best as I could to get along with people, and the older people, my parents, parents' friends, the teachers, the neighbors, they all loved me. They thought I was nice. They thought I was sweet, really caring, really giving, very helpful. But people my own age, you know, it was really difficult to talk with and to really connect. And I would always say something inappropriate. And so people want to put me on the spectrum. And it's like, okay, yeah, I agree. And because even now, it's hard for me to have, just regular chit chat, small talk. That's very difficult for me. And it is something where when I see people, I can see the best of who they can be. I can see their light. I can see all the wonderful positive things about them. And people don't live into that a lot of times. People are afraid of their own greatness. They're afraid of standing out, and and it's too easy to go along to get along
Mm.
instead of leading that. Um, and it's also stuff where I see people and they're putting up with crap. They're in somewhat abusive relationships, or they continue to hang out with people that treat them like crap.
Mm.
And that's hard for me to watch.
Mm.
And I have to really be careful. One, I mean, I have so many things stacked against me. It's not funny. I mean, I'm an intuitive, and in the human design, I think I'm a splenic projector, so the projector knows what's going to happen, knows the best thing for you. But as everybody tells me, it's like, Dad, my daughter said, Dad, let me find out on my own. And so I have to sit back and watch people I love and care about make stupid mistakes. I have to, but when I was a kid, I got out of dishes a lot because my mom had a really bad neck, and my mom had a lot of health problems her whole life, my whole life. She had a lot of health problems. And I would be the one that I could touch my mom's neck. I could massage my mom's neck. And my dad at one time says, "Why bother going to the chiropractor? Just let Joseph touch your neck and just let Joseph rub your neck." And I would rub my mom's neck and I would get out of doing dishes because I would rub her neck and she'd feel better. And so, um, but I didn't know that I was seeing the angels. I didn't know I was feeling the angels. I did have a lot of really severe traumas, and a couple of near-death experiences even when I was a kid. And I didn't know the angels were there with me until I looked back at it. I survived stuff that, how did I survive that? And but it was interesting. I didn't know, literally, the mentor of mine that I told you that had me work on that woman. He would set me up and do different things. Like he would make me guide a meditation. I was so damn shy. I mean, I was shy, real shy. And he would tell me I'd have to guide a meditation for 12 people. And
Uh,
I tried to get the three ladies to lead the meditation, and they said, "No, John already talked to us. You got to lead the meditation." And so I was like, okay. So I would lead the meditation, and then John would come and it's like, no, 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 you keep going, you keep going. And I tried to give it back to John, and everybody that was there said, no, let Joe do the meditations. We can go deeper when Joe leads the meditations.
mm.
And when I do guided meditations, people really do go deep. They can experience physical healing and emotional healing when I guide the meditations. And so I do those now every single Monday night for free. It's Tuesday morning for you guys. Um, and so, but I didn't know then. And it took me a long time for both John and my other teacher, Cam Ewan. And then I had another mentor, Joe Buck. Joe Buck was Native American. And Joe Buck, he saw in me the gifts that I had as well. And he had me sit with him. And when I would sit with him, he was such an empath that he could see the people that had passed away. He could see the energy in the rocks, the plants, the trees, the animals, the people. And it was when I sat with Joe Book that people would come on and Joe would look and he would see and say, and he could see that they had an illness. And I could see, because of sitting next to him, I could see what the illness was too.
Mm.
And I could see that in the animals, I could see that in humans. Um, and with Cam, my Shaolin master, the Chinese teacher, we would do it really rudimentarily with kinesiology. We had charts and graphs. And so that helped me see it and beginning to see it. But then when I sat with Joe Bug, the native, I just felt it all. I felt it all, and I didn't need the charts and graphs.
Mm.
And that's when the people that had passed away started to show up as well. And um, and when they talk in a way that you definitely know that it's your person.
Mm.
They will use very, very specific words and languages that I wouldn't do.
Mm.
There was one time I was working with a woman and she had really severe migraines. And her brother showed up in the when I was working, and he was saying some things and he says, "Tell her this," and I'm just like, "No," like no. And he says, "Tell," and he wouldn't stop. He kept on saying it, and I told her, I says, "Hey, there's 5 words that I have to say." And I says, the guy, says, "Your brother won't get off it. He's making me say these 5 words." And she doubted that it was her brother. And I says, "Let me just say these words and we'll go on." And I said, because I can't hear anything else. I can't. And so I said these words and she simultaneously started to laugh and cry. She goes, "It is him. It is my brother." And she goes, her brother was flaming gay, absolutely flaming gay. And that was his catty way of saying, "Hey there, girl, how's it going?" But he said it in such a derogatory, horrible way that, if I would say that to any woman, oh my God, the least I'd get is a kick between the legs or slap across the face. They'd push me into oncoming traffic.
Um,
um,
yeah,
but hearing that kind of stuff, it's something where you know that it's for you.
yeah.
And when I work with people, I worked with a guy this past week and has a litany of medical problems, health problems, just a whole list of them. I actually had to turn the page. He had that many things as I was writing them down. And as I was working with him, people that had happened, abuses that had happened, traumas that had happened, loves that were, shattered. All of those things came through, and some of them I had to tell him and talk about them, and a lot of them we were able to clear without him needing to hear it again. But that's the way that it is with me, being able to hear it and being able to see it and feel it sometimes. And when I pay attention, then the client's body shifts and changes, and things that nobody else could help. In Minnesota, when I used to live up there, the Mayo Clinic, that's a very well-known medical institution in the States, and it's the place that people go when nobody else can help. You go to the Mayo.
Mm.
And I would get clients that would go down to the Mayo, get all their test results. They would come to me and say, "Hey, this is what's going on." I would work with them. They would go back to the Mayo and they wouldn't need the surgery or the procedure.
Oh,
And they would say, "What on earth did you do?" And they would say, "Well, I saw this healer in the cities."
yeah.
And they started to ask. I had 3 clients that said, they literally said, "Did you go see Joe?" So the world-renowned institution started to find out about me. And I told them, I said, "Hey, anytime they want to interview me, test me, study me, I'm up for it." But they never reached out. So,
Surprise, surprise.
yeah.
I was going to
Mhm.
say, Joe, so your healing, um, did the mentors come into your life to kind of help you through, or when you said you had John, Cam, and Joe as mentors on your journey, did they come in to help you through your own healing, or what's that kind of after?
No, I was in a support group, two support groups for people with life-threatening illnesses. And one night, one of the women from there called me up and said, "Joe, you got to go to see this guy. He's amazing. He's actually helping some of our friends." And I'm like, "Really?" And so she told me, and I was going through a really nasty divorce at the time, and they were using the illness to keep my daughters away from me. And so I had to not miss any time that was scheduled for me and my girls. And she said, "Yeah, they got one on Monday night." I said, "Oh," I said, "I can't go on Monday night. I have my daughters." And I said, "The only time, and if I did go, I would lose my vision. I would have severe nausea for, and when I say severe nausea, and the eyesight, I wouldn't be able to really walk without leaning on something. I couldn't see. I couldn't cook for darn. I couldn't help my youngest daughter was 8 months old when my ex-wife left. And so I wouldn't have been able to diaper my daughter. I wouldn't be able to clothe my daughter, none of that kind of stuff if I got sick. And so I said the only time that I could go was Thursday. And so she called me on Monday night and she says, "Joe, they added a Thursday." I'm like, "Okay, I'm going." I'm going because by totally serendipitous, I really believe that it's, certain things happen when they're supposed to happen.
Absolutely.
And when I went there, the crowd was 150 people, and Cam picked me out of a group of 150 people, and he says, "You can do this." And
Mhm.
I looked at him, and there was two things. It's like, okay, I need help. I'm dying. I need help. I mean, I was scared. I was scared to shit because I didn't want to die and I needed help and it was getting worse. And when he said I could help other people, I was like, so what? I need to live. Help me live. And so I talked to his people and he says, yeah, he says, Cam can help you. And so what happened is I went to Cam, but he sent me to John. And so John, one of the guys that became my mentor, I went to him twice. And after the second time I went to John, I was off the oxygen. I no longer needed to have the oxygen. And I get emotional still thinking about it. I went from being so darn sick to all of a sudden, I had no idea, even when I could see, I had no idea that my vision was um, impaired for all those years because I could see enough to get life done. But when I got better, everything was crisper, everything was cleaner, everything the colors were. I remember going outside and seeing the green up against this yellow house, and it was so darn beautiful. It was so amazing, and I was like, "Holy crap! I've been blind for a couple of years."
Mm.
And but I felt so darn good, and it was wild because when I left, as we were walking out, he had a studio that I went to. As he was walking to me to the car, the neighbor had the dryer going with I could smell Tide and Bounce. Both of those would cause me to lose my vision. Both of those would cause me to be, I would have had to get a ride home.
Yeah.
And I would smell it. I smelt it, and I was completely, totally healthy.
Wow.
And so I went to Cam, and Cam sent me to John. I went to John, um, and when I got better, I was like, okay, I want to find out about this. I got to find out about this. What the heck is it? I mean, I thought about all the people I knew, 37 people in the two different support groups that were sick and dying. And it's just like, okay, you guys think I can help them, really? And so I started to study with them, and Cam and John rode me so hard. And Cam he's passed now. He was a Shaolin master, and Shaolins do not point because they know that if you point, there's energy flowing out of your finger,
Yeah.
and so they wouldn't point. Cam pointed at me three different times during my 3.5 years of training, and when he pointed at me, I could I could feel it. And but he rode me hard, and he knew that I could do it. And John, when that lady that I worked on that I told you about with the hoodie and the long sleeve shirt and the t-shirt, John set me up with that. And he says now he after I worked with that lady, that had been in pain and cold for 7 years. And, they said she needed the surgery, and John couldn't help her. And I helped her in 47 minutes. John timed it. And he goes, I just have one question for you. He says, does it feel that good to think that little of yourself? And he says, you don't get it. He says, you are gifted. He says, you're better than me. And he says, and you're better. And he named people that I had trained with Cam. And he says, you're better than all of us.
Mm.
And um, he says, once you get it and once you understand it, I'm retiring.
Wow.
I'm teaching you until you get it. And then I'm retiring.
Wow. Wow.
And so I
Wow.
was really, really fortunate to have these people, quote
Yeah.
unquote, fall into my lap. Like,
Oh, what came to me, Joe, was just you were the chosen one. That just came to me as I'm listening to all this. Uh, all the things you've had to endure, and then, all these amazing people were coming into your life and not just assisting you, but enabling your or awakening up your gifts, I believe, and for you to really trust in them, I suppose, trust in your gifts.
mhm.
Um, can I ask you? I mean, trauma is obviously a huge topic, and it's just coming to light more and more. Um, what would you, if you were to say to the listeners, if someone were to ask you, what are the keys to healing trauma? What would you say to that question? What would the, three biggest keys to healing trauma? What, in your eyes, and would that be?
The first one that I would say is fire the editor and get rid of the filter, because there's such a push for people to be told, just get over it. It happened to you. It happened years ago. Just get over it.
Yeah.
Or, people will say, what did you do to call it in? And I'm just like, what did I do to call it in? you know, um, all of those may or may not be true, but the first thing is to really fire the editor. And what I mean by that is, if you were going on a hike and 7 miles up the road, there's the view of your lifetime. It's going to be the most beautiful sunrise that you've ever seen in your life, and you're going up there, and you're 3 miles up, and you twist your ankle, and it swells up like a balloon. Nobody's going to tell you, hey, get over it. Let's just go the rest of the 3.5 miles up that way, and then it's going to be a 5 mile hike back. Just get over it. Don't worry about it. You can do it. It's all in your mind. Nobody would tell you that. Well, trauma is the same kind of thing. When you experience a trauma, there's an emotional part to it, but there's also a physical part to it. The way that God, creator, source, universe, however you want to call it, created the neuroreceptors in your brain. When you experience a trauma, it changes how those neuroreceptors work. That's a physical thing. So when you have anything that's similar to that, you're going to be triggered in this incorrect way in the neuroreceptors. So whether you see a movie, whether you hear sounds like that, or if you smell the same kind of perfume, cologne, laundry detergent, whatever that existed during that trauma, it's going to trigger those neuroreceptors. So now tell those neuroreceptors that are happening biologically, just get over it. Okay. And this is where my stuff works when mindset doesn't,
Mm.
because a lot of mindset, you can do stuff like that. You can get over it. But when the traumas are there, we have to pay attention to the energy of the trauma. When we pay attention to the energy of the trauma, then what ends up happening is these neuroreceptors that are misfiring, that are leading down you that path of anxiety, that path of doubt, fear, worry, illness. When we remove that trauma, when we remove the energy behind that, it completely shifts. But you have to be willing to admit what happened, because if you don't admit to it, there's so many times where I ask, if there's been physical abuse, emotional abuse, or sexual abuse. No. I'm just like, okay, cool. And especially somebody that's, 50, 60 years old. I'm like, okay, how was discipline handled? Well,
Yeah,
you
well,
know, they swatted my butt, and I said, with their hand or with, spatula, or what did they hit you with? A switch? Okay, cool. They took a stick and beat you. Okay, and that's not abuse, or, you know, it's so unfortunate, when a woman, it wasn't that bad when
mm,
she's, if there was sexual abuse, it really wasn't that bad. There was no penetration, or I wasn't touched.
mm,
And it's something where it's like, okay, if you think about it and it makes you wiggle or squirm, either physically or emotionally, it was significant.
yeah,
And so admitting to the fact that you felt uncomfortable because the first time you showed up in a bikini, both your dad and your uncle leered at you and made comments,
mm,
that's sexual abuse. That's
yeah,
inappropriate. That's inappropriate trauma.
mm,
So when you admit that, that's the first thing. Your body's like, oh, thank God.
yeah,
Okay.
mm,
And and it's also something where it's like being honest with your system is going to help it. Just like on that hike, if you sat there and continued to walk on it, ooh, 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 but you continued to walk and you continued to walk, your body is going to get more upset, not just because of the pain, but because of the fact that you're not believing it.
mm,
Your body's going to cause more problems about that. And this is stuff where Noetic Sciences, the Ion Center, and HeartMath.org, all these different things, the movie Heal, they
yeah,
talk about all these different things. The movie The Cure Is talks about all of this on a scientific level. So when you can admit to exactly what it was, that's going to be the biggest thing.
mm,
And
mm,
then the second part is when you admit to it, giving yourself the grace, because just to, okay, I admitted it, now I got to get over it. Um, there's aspects to it. There's a woman that I'm working with right now, and she was sexually abused by the church, people at the church, her grandfather and her uncle. And when she started to date, she had all these problems, and it caused all kinds of anxiety. And she ended up dating the wrong guys all the time. All the guys that she ever dated betrayed her and abused her. And so when we started to work together, we started to clear the energy. And when we started to clear the energy, she realized, oh my God, my mom never had my back. My mom never had my back. My dad still hangs out with the guy from church that did this.
mm,
Um, and so maybe this is why I get so sick during the holidays, because I go there and my dad is there hanging out with the doofus, the predator.
mm,
And so admitting how bad it was, giving yourself some grace, and then looking to see, it's like, what is it that I want? What would I really want? And that's something, because when you've experienced, inappropriate trauma, whether it's physical, emotional, or sexual, when you've experienced inappropriate trauma, the ability to desire, the ability to dream, the ability to plan is taken away from you, uh,
mm,
oftentimes in the hugest, biggest way. And this is the part where people, when they've gone through that, they either go towards narcissism, or they go towards helplessness and victim, a lot of times, or they go through this time where it's like, okay, I want to be strong, but how do I be strong? And I don't know what to do. And it still ends up being to the point where they end up in, bad relationships, negative relationships that are, misuse them, however. And so, but have the and this is the part lots of times that brings up either the fear, or it'll bring up absolute anger and sometimes rage. When I ask people, what's your desire?
mm,
What's your dream? What's your desire and your dream for yourself? There was a woman that when I asked that, it was wild. We were making all kinds of progress. And when I asked her that, she just got so angry because of, like, when she was a kid, anything that she wanted was made bad or taken away or broken. And, you know, and she had gotten a dress and a bunny rabbit, or bunny for Easter from her mom. They got this beautiful green dress that she looked at, in the store windows. downtown, and beautiful green dress, and it matched her, so beautifully. And the bunny, and then her dad says, "Okay, now you kind of come and give me a big kiss." And the dad did all this inappropriate attention, inappropriate touch,
Mm, mm,
and um, and so here was her dream. Here was
mm,
something she had the guts, and she was so stupid to
mm,
think that she could have it,
mm,
this pretty dress, and to look pretty and have this cute bunny. She was so stupid to think she could have it. And that's literally what she felt, is that here she was like 9 or 10 years old. And because she dreamt about this and wanted, she just believed she was stupid. And so now when she would dream or think, it's like, why did I ever, who was I to think that? And so dreaming for herself is still out of bounds. She could dream and make things happen for her kids like this, just no problem. She would hear a dream from her kid, she would make it happen. And she worked harder. She was extraordinarily successful. Dreaming for herself was scared the crap out of her, you know?
wow.
And yeah. But now it was wild because when I worked with her, she went to her 65th birthday party and she started, God, I get so emotional, shaking all over, and hairs on end. Her daughter started to cry. And she's, "Oh my God, Mom." She goes, "You're here." She goes, "Well, yeah, of course. I told you I was going to be here." "No, you're here. Mom, I haven't seen you in years." She
Mm,
goes, "You're here." And they had a beautiful, beautiful cry. They went for a little walk, probably like 15-minute walk. Actually, everybody's like, "What the hell is going on? She's supposed to be here for the birthday." But they just celebrated the fact that, she was really in her body. She was having fun. She was experiencing pleasures and adventures, and she was daring to dream. And
mm.
it was fun. It was cool. So
Oh,
whenever I hear from her, it's just so darn cool.
yeah, so beautiful. And I think that what comes to me is when we hang on to trauma like that, we kind of lose ourselves. We're not completely present. And when that daughter saw that she was kind of back,
Mhm.
isn't that so beautiful? And as I've listened to you, there's just so many gems here that you've given to us so far. Like, I mean, I feel that a lot of the time we do minimize things.
Mhm.
And that is a real danger because we're not allowing ourselves to feel when we are supposed to feel, to be able to, navigate through it and then be able to let it go. But rather than when we say we minimize it and make it smaller than it is, then I believe we start to store it more and becomes a bigger thing. It just lays there hidden until it sort of erupts in some kind
Mhm.
of way later on. So yeah, amazing, amazing, gems there. And it sounds like to me, I mean, I'd love to learn so much more about your work. I just got a question because we got to wrap it up soon, Joe. I feel we got to continue on a second episode for sure.
Mhm.
Uh, um, so when you see people, you do a lot of like this Zoom calls with people. Is that correct?
Actually, I just do it over the phone, and over the phone or over WhatsApp, because when I would do it on a Zoom, what would happen is people would say, "You made a face." And I'm just like, "What was that? What was that about?" And I'm just like, "I didn't know I made a face." So when it's on the phone, people can hit it on the speaker and they just have to listen to me. And a lot of times when I'm working with people, a lot of times I won't say a word, and I'll just, look like this and I'll look like that. And so if you looked at me, you might wonder, what's this dude doing? Is he doing anything? But when there's no visual, you can just sit there, and occasionally I'll make noise or I'll ask him questions. But
Mm.
it's all over the phone. I have clients all over the world, and people can feel the shifts and the changes, quite quickly.
Wow, amazing. I was kind of had this in my mind that you saw people and you actually did touch as well. So what's your
Well, I do touch when people have experienced significant trauma. So whether it's, a severe fall, car accident, or surgery, I worked with a woman that had a surgery, and it was really disgusting because when she was being operated on, she was actually being fondled when she was under the anesthesia. But she was aware of it, and she didn't understand how come she was absolutely petrified after she came out of the anesthesia and having certain parts of her body touched. She didn't understand how come it drove her crazy and or drove her into reaction is a better thing. It really drove her into reaction. And when I started work with her, I'm like, well, this is what happened when you had the surgery. And so when she she went to one of the nurses and she goes, I've been feeling really weird about this ever since the surgery, and especially when I'm touched here. And she saw the reaction from the nurse.
Yeah.
She goes, okay, you need to tell me what happened. And the nurse started to cry, and the nurse, was almost getting sick. And
Mm.
she goes, I watched him and I was afraid to stop him because I knew he would fire me. But I'll talk to the police if you want me to talk to the police. And so they did. And the guy got arrested and lost his license and all that kind of stuff.
Mm.
But so I'm sorry, I kind of went off on a tangent. What what was your question?
Ah, I can't actually remember myself
Okay.
because I
So
went
yeah, it
off
was something.
a
Yeah, it
tangent.
was.
No, I was
Uh,
asking about touch. That was it.
oh, touch. Okay. So yeah. So with her, for example, it was something that I said, okay, I'm going to do this, and when I do that, the client has clothes on, and even when I slide my hands underneath them, I usually slide them underneath the sheet and stuff. But sometimes when I work, I'll be touching their body, and if they've had something from an accident or surgeries, something like that, then I will need to touch their skin and I will need to, move the muscle. And as I do that, I'll do fascia work and stuff. And I've had a lot of, you know, training, but I've been doing it intuitively since 2002, where I will touch the body and release things and where nobody else can release it. I was actually flown down to Mexico to work with a woman that had frozen hips, and we were able to get her to the point where she could actually walk.
Okay.
But so I will touch the body if it's necessary to be able to bring the healing about quicker and faster. And sometimes, like I worked with a guy actually this past weekend that had experienced really significant trauma and abuse. And so as I was doing that with him, I did physical along with the energetic, and I always do a combination with the physical and the energetic. And so I do occasionally work with people physically, and especially women that have gone through inappropriate abuse. I will work with them, and that is something that oftentimes will take you know 3 or 4 or 5 sessions sometimes of working together physically to be able to clear that and get it to the point where they can actually experience safe pleasure either with themselves or with a partner after we do that kind of work.
Now, I've got another question for you, Joe, and that is I've got lots of questions, but this one might take you a little bit to answer. Um, just curious about, we know both of us everything is frequency. Um, I'm really loving sound as a tool to heal. And
Sure.
a lot of people also, there's a lot of different kind of frequency devices that comes out. Can you elaborate a little bit, first of all, on sound and what, sound frequencies and also all different frequency device? What's your view on that?
They're cool. In 2003, when I met Dr. Dean Rodden, and he's the head of the Noetic Sciences in the Ion Center, one of the world's most renowned quantum physicists, we actually went into a room where there was all kinds of different machines and from all over the world. And when I touched these machines, you would hold the diodes or you'd put on the gloves, whatever, and I could feel what part of the body they were actually working on. And there was one brand new machine that came out actually in 2003 from Romania, and it was $35,000 at the time, and they were testing it. And so they hooked me up to it, and I could tell them exactly where the body it was being. So they're cool. The Rife, when somebody's running it really, really well, it's really cool. Sound, I've had experiences where I had a sound healer, and it's wild. I've had it where I could see things that happened to me, both good and bad. And one of the things that with me, I've had issues with my feet for years. And this woman didn't know it. And she was doing all this sound stuff. And I could feel in my feet, it was unbelievable, the different things and the different vibrations. And I could have different sensations in my feet. It's like, wow. And so when we got done, she goes, did you feel something in your feet? And I said, yeah. And so she started to tell me what she saw. And I've had people experience all kinds of things. There's times where I will pull out crystals and I'll work on people. It's rarely, but when I do, there's a crystal that calls me and says touch. And so it's kind of, I don't know if you guys in Australia have anything like this, but you probably have something different now. But in the United States, there was Baskin Robbins. There was 31 flavors of ice cream. And I say things like that. There's a flavor for everybody. That's something where I am not the one that's going to heal everybody. That's not the gig. That's not my burden. But it's something where I can help loads and loads of people. And then if I can't, I refer them to colleagues, or refer them to different things. And I've had people that have gone. I've had people. It's like, okay, go here. I tell them, go here, experience that, and experience this person, experience this. And there was a guy that I used to refer to up in Wisconsin a lot because he had one of those machines called a Health Angel. That thing was cool. It was one of those that when it dialed in, you could feel what it was doing. And so those machines are pretty awesome. But it's something just like everything, you got to do your due diligence. And um, there's great doctors out there, and there's horrible doctors out there. There's great energy healers out there, and there's horrible energy healers. There's great sound people. There's not so great. There's people that use those machines that are unbelievable, off the charts, fantastic, amazing,
Mm.
and there's other people too. So
So,
just pray
yeah,
about it, meditate about it, trust your intuition, and go to what calls you. Yeah, totally.
fantastic. Uh, as I have listened to you here, we are so similar, Joe, in so many ways. And the last thing you said about Baskin Robbins, um, I listened to, actually, sorry, I started watching the movie about, and I don't know if you know the story about Baskin Robbins.
No.
So listen to this. This is really cool. You should watch it. I watched it on Gaia last night. The story of him and how he grew so quickly. And his son, it's called Love Over Money because his son stepped away from his father. It's a real story, and his son started writing a book about how to heal, about the Americans and their diet. His father, so the founder, I can't remember his name, of Baskin Robbins. I mean, he was a billionaire, like it was massive, but he fell ill, you see. And when he went to a doctor, the doctor took this book and said, "You should read this book." And that was his son's book, and he didn't say anything. But through this whole journey, he connected back to his son. So it's a very interesting story. So it's interesting that
Yeah.
came up, and yes, so many other things that I so can relate to, Joey. I could talk to you for ages. As you know, we had a little bit of a talk before the podcast, and you know, we definitely meant to connect. And you've got so much to give, and I know the listeners are probably keen to learn more about you, and I will pop all the description obviously in the podcast interview if anyone want to connect with you or myself. and it will be on YouTube as well. So maybe we can, in a bit, do episode 2 and continue
That
on.
sounds fun. Yeah, that'd be cool.
But I thank you so much. A very inspiring a journey you've had of, coming close to leaving this earth and then stepping into your amazing mastery of healing. So I thank you from my heart, Joey. You're doing amazing work. And yeah, have you got anything you want to say to the listeners before we wrap up?
Sure. If they go to my website, profoundpower.net, there is a contact Joe or something, contact, and they can click on that and they can schedule a free 30-minute consultation. And so we can talk, they can ask me, I have this, that, and the other thing, and I'll be able to tell them, yeah, I think I can help you, or I think you should see somebody else. And they can take that time to get comfortable because um, they want to, and they should do this with anybody. But yeah, they can just go to my website, click on the contact, schedule a meeting, we can talk, and they can see if they'd like to book a session. And also on there soon, I'll have the link for the Monday night meditations, and everybody's welcome to join Monday meditation, 8 to 9 p.m. Eastern time, and it's complimentary. So
Fantastic.
thank
Thank
you.
you so much again, Joe. And thanks for everyone that tuned in. We look forward to sharing more with you at a later stage. Thank you so much, Joe.
Thanks. Thanks.